Namaskar. Welcome to all our viewers. We are commemorating Azadi Ka Amrit Mahotsav fortnight. As our viewers know, we have an ongoing lecture series in which distinguished speakers in the US Midwest speak on different facets of India, including our rich cultural heritage and significant accomplishments as a nation. As part of these events, today we are pleased to have a presentation on Kalamkari, an ancient form of Indian art, and Batik, and some related stories from the past by Miss Piyas Bhattacharjee. She is an eminent artist and founder of Paisley Academy Arts and Fabrics. She is engaged in promoting the ancient hand dyeing textile arts of Kalamkari and Batik using these art forms. So, we are pleased to welcome Ms. Piyas Bhattacharjee. Now, I hand over the floor to her for her presentation. Welcome, Ms. Bhattacharjee.
Thank you so much, Ranjitji, for this warm introduction. Om Shanti. Greetings to all of you. Namaste. I hope you all are doing good. Now, before we start the presentation, I would like to thank the Indian Consulate Chicago for giving me this platform today. As you all know, that today's topic is all about Kalamkari and Batik, the stories from the past. India has always been a fascinating land hub of textiles, art, culture, and color. Its fabulous weaves, patterns, designs have always been an inspiration for so many people all across, right? And has drawn so many people from all over the world and has been an inspiration. So today's topic, I'm going to start with Kalamkari, which you probably have heard of the term Kalamkari, right? Or probably even own a Kalamkari sari. So I'm first going to start with Kalamkari, and then after that, we're going to go to a discussion on Batik. The art Kalamkari actually started in India. So I'm just going to share my slides with you. So yes, the word Kalamkari actually comes from two main words. Kalam, which means the pen, and Kari is the craft. It's an ancient form of art. It's about 3,000 years old. So let me share the screen. Am I able to share the screen?
Your screen is visible to us.
Okay, thank you. Okay. Yeah, I would just like to repeat again. The word Kalamkari actually comes from two main words. Kalam, which means the pen, and Kari is the craft. So this form of art is an ancient form of art. It is about 3,000 years old or even more than that. So original Kalamkari is on cotton or on silk, and it uses completely natural dyes. So this ancient textile art have been known in Srikalahasti as well as Machilipatnam. So there are these two forms of art, We'll be going into details later on during the presentation. Kalamkari involves several tedious steps, very interesting, but very, very tedious. For example, it could be dyeing, washing, bleaching, boiling, and so on. And if you look at Kalamkari piece, you will be seeing motifs from the peacocks, Paisley, and also from Hindu mythology, for example, the Mahabharata and Ramayana. Now, the characteristics, if you look at a Kalamkari piece, you will see that these are like heavy, intricate designs, Even if you look at birds, even if you look at, for example, the figures or characteristics, you will see that they use the solid colors. There is barely any shading that has been used. And if you look at the figures, for example, you will be seeing round faces, long, big faces, big expressive eyes. And if you look at these women features, you will be seeing that heavy chins for women and men in mustaches. Even everything is very, very decorated. Even the borders are very intricate. Everything is very colorful and very detail oriented. And it usually depicts a story. So this is like a very Kalamkari piece, which I wanted to share. So you can see how intricate and how detailed it is. Now, Kalamkari, as yeah, the evolution of Kalamkari actually started as a craft that used to be very common in the temples, and it started as a religious tapestry. And later on, there was that evolution that took place in the society that changed. The type of art actually went through a lot of changes, and it depicted the life of the people and the changes that took place over time. So, for example, when the Muslims ruled, when the Mughals came, the style changed. And later on, when the British came, the style changed again. In the 16th century, there were these wars between the Marathas, Mughals, and the Rajputs. And this impacted the art in many, many different ways. The art evolved when the Mughals invaded, and it got a different style. It's called the Deccan style. It started, although, as a temple art where you had seen Hindu mythological stories, but later on it became more of a Deccan style during the Mughals. And moving forward during the British, the styles changed again. During the 17th century, there was a huge demand from the Mughals, Persians, Dutch, and the British. The original Kalamkari did not last that long. The styles changed over time because of the trade, because they wanted to make it more profitable. The traditional styles all and evolved in order to cater to the taste of the Western market. And it had a huge global market. For example, the Portuguese called it penado, the Dutch call it sits, the British call it shins, the French call it toiles painters, and the Persians call it pelampor. Yeah. So the pelampor is actually a hand-painted, mortar-dyed bed cover, which was made original in India, and it uses the Kalamkari style. And the material that was used was cotton or linen. In the 18th and the 19th century, the export market was mainly meant for the Dutch, and it was for the Dutch who colonized in Indonesia, and also for the very wealthy class in Europe. And in this style, you will be seeing the tree of life, for example. The tree of life is a universal concept. The idea is centered around knowledge, wisdom, spirituality, fertility, life, and death. So it is known across all the cultures around the world. So it was a very, very popular concept in Kalamkari, which was first seen in the 17th century, and it featured animals and peacocks and trailing flowers. And it became very popular in the European market. And over time, there were these elements from both the cultures which kind of blended together, and that was reflected in this type of art. So it went through a huge change over a period of time. Now, this is, the designs in Kalamkari, Pelampore, which I just wanted to share. You can see how beautiful, how intricate these designs were, and everything is made out of natural dyes, completely natural dyed, and they were very much in demand during those days. And as I had briefly mentioned, the British call it chintz. The chintz was also very, very popular. There's a term called chintzy, which is an old-fashioned factory made in Britain. Well, chintz is different. So chintz was very, very popular, and they have been made from very expensive, finest cotton. And this cotton was produced in the Coromandel coast in India. So later, this type of art in the 20th century was strictly restricted to only hand drawn. So it was completely referred to as a hand drawn ones. Although earlier, there was also probably made with block and hand drawing, but the historians later wanted to restrict it to completely pure hand drawing ones. The cloth here, this cotton fabric was actually beetled. So it was beaten in order to get a very satin finish. And there was this beautiful fabrics that were created, and had an export value, a huge export value. And all the designs and patterns that you see here was all made in Kalamkari style. And shea is the main ingredient probably for the dye. Now, I would just like to go through the dyes and paints. As I had mentioned earlier, the dyes and paints are completely natural. The black, you will be seeing most of the time in Kalamkari. Main colors were like black, red, and blue. That's how it started. These were the original colors, probably also a little bit of yellow. The black is nothing but is actually a fermented solution of rusted iron and water and jaggery. So we have to keep these things together, and it has to go through this fermentation. It has to go through multiple days of fermentation when the black ink is produced, the dye. And the yellow is obtained from pomegranate rind and or myrobalan seeds and fruits, which is often known as harda, and that can be applied directly on the fabric. And blue, in order to blue, is obtained from indigo, which is a very complex process. So these are the main colors. Besides that, red is something that you will find in almost every painting that I've come across. Red is one of the dominant colors, and red is obtained from madder. But to get red, it's not so easy. I mean, you have to go through that complete boiling process. And the mordant that is used, mordant is nothing, it's a kind of a substance that is used in order to for the dye to stick onto the fabric. So alum is a well-known mordant that is used in order to get the color red, and that actually you can see the change in color when it goes through a boiling process. Nowadays, you also see many other different colors, for example, pink, green, violets, and so many. So the colors always have a symbolic meaning. Blue is usually associated with deities. For example, you would be seeing many deities. You know, we might come across a couple of pictures which I will share later on. Even in the previous one, you can see here Ganesha is actually, is colored in blue. And you can see other colors, like blue is always for gods and for deities, and red is associated with demons, and Hanuman is often seen colored green, and so on. And yellow is a color also you will be seeing for female body, for female skin color, and that is to simulate with the gold ornaments. Okay, now I just want to go through a technique, but with the technique of Kalamkari. Now, the cloth first is a very interesting technique, however, very, very, very complex. And so before I go to the technique, I would just slightly go a little bit about the history. There are two different styles of Kalamkari. One is Sri Kalahasti style, which I had earlier mentioned. Sri Kalahasti is a place which is famous for temples. Both these places are in Andhra Pradesh, southern India. Now, Sri Kalahasti mainly focuses on hand drawing. It's completely hand-drawn items, and whereas Machilipatnam mainly focuses on block printing. My focus is on the Sri Kalahasti style, mainly on hand drawing Kalamkari, because by definition, if you look at definition of Kalamkari, it says that it's an art using pen. I will be sharing and showing you a little bit about the Kalamkari pens, which I have here for you, and maybe you might find it interesting. Well, so Sri Kalahasti mainly focuses on mythological characters, and whereas Machilipatnam, it focuses on block printing. And there they have the influence of the Persian influence, where you will be seeing, for example, paisleys, peacocks, birds, animals, and many other decorative leaves, and many other things are seen in this style of art in Machilipatnam style. Well, talking about the technique, I'm mainly focusing on Sri Kalahasti, which is hand drawing. And first, what we have to do is that they have to wash, whether we are doing it or if the artisans there are working, the cloth first have to be well washed in water. And it has to be well washed because it has to be free of starch and dirt. Next, once the cloth is dry, then the cloth has to be treated with myrobalan, which is harda, and it's also called haritaki. So myrobalan and milk. So not any milk. Usually they use buffalo milk. Now, why do they use buffalo milk? Because of the high fat content. Now, high fat content is very important for this process because it will help prevent spreading the paint. So this is very, very important step. So it should not spread. The ink or the colors should not spread. So that's why they use myrobalan in combination with buffalo milk for this treatment. So this is a very important step that has to go through. So once this is done, the cloth that we get it gets a different color, which is somewhat like little bit like brownish, little bit grayish. Okay, now after this comes the drying process. So it has to completely dry. And in between, there are all these processes that have to make sure that it's well spread evenly. So these are things that they always have to take care of. Okay, then comes the sketching process. Well, when they sketch, they use charcoal, not regular charcoal, but they use tamarind branches. So these are burnt tamarind branches, which work as beautiful charcoal or like pencils, and that is used to do the sketching first, the outline. Okay, so after the outlining, then comes the inking process. So, which I had just mentioned, the black is one of the most important color, one of the most important color. So, and that's actually fermented solution of palm jaggery or sugarcane jaggery, water, and rusted iron. So they have to keep in a pot. Maybe it's an earthen pot, or maybe it's in a plastic container. And water is also there. It takes about 15-20 days through the fermentation to take place. It usually doesn't look black. So because I have prepared that Qasim here at my place, so I know exactly how it looks like. It doesn't really look black, but when it comes in contact with the treated cloth, that's a marable and treated cloth, then the magic happens. So it's basically, I think it's more called the iron acetate, and because it's all, you see, then this is actually chemistry happening here. So when they use that pen and they dip it in that solution, in the Qasim solution, and they apply it on their cloth, and then the magic, you can see the black color appearing. Okay, now, okay, so next comes the series of application of paints. As I had just mentioned, red is from madder, and pomegranate rind has been used for yellow. Blue is from indigo, and then there are many other colors. Now, for example, let's say they want to paint a flower, and those areas maybe they want to apply, for example, red color, right? And so what is happening is that in between they have to go through an alum solution, so they have to go through an alum process. So meaning the areas, only those areas that needs to be dyed with red, alum solution of alum is applied evenly. And that cloth, once after the application of alum, should be boiled in madder solution. For example, there are any other ingredients also used for red, but madder is typically used. And then you have to boil it for quite a while, depending on the size of the fabric. And then it has to go through boiling the madder in madder solution. And those areas that just got the alum will get the red color. So it's very interesting. And in between, there is a lot of washing. They have to typically use a river. They have to depend on the river. You can see it's in the picture that it has to go through a lot of this washing. They have to go through bleaching. Animal dung is used for bleaching. So it's completely all obtained from nature. So yeah, so it is. And there are several times that it goes through, depending on how many colors you're using and so on. So Kalamkari actually reached its peak in the 16th and the 19th century. So it was the time when it really was very popular. It was known all across the world, and but there was a time when it came to decline, when the British weavers started complaining about the influx of cotton, this Indian cotton, and they protested against imports. And then there was the law that went, that said that they have to stop importing all these materials from India. And then they established the European cotton industry, which affected a lot of people and those who were dependent on this type of job, and heavily. So and that came to a decline, and that really affected it. And therefore, it slowly started diminishing. This type of art slowly was kind of fading. It could also be the other reason, because chemical dyes were easily available and is much cheaper, and things work much faster with chemicals. Whereas when you're using kalamkari, I mean the natural ingredients to prepare the right kalamkari piece, it's very tedious process. It takes multiple days. For example, it takes about 15 to 20 days just to prepare the iron, like the black ink. And after all, also the prices were another factor as well. Now, so it completely kind of faded in the middle of the 20th century, the popularity of Kalamkari in Srikalahasti diminished and it almost faded. And later in 1950, Kalamkari received a government attention and sponsorship with the help of art activists, and her name was Kamala Devi Chattopadhyay. She was the one who actually helped reviving this form of art. So in 1957, Kamala Devi Chattopadhyay helped to establish a government-run Kalamkari Training Center that mainly focused on teaching and training the people and hence reviving this type of art. So I just wanted to share the picture how the people there work in India. You can see this lady sitting there, and she's just using the kasim that is in a little container there, and she's using those pens that's needed for the sketching, or maybe if you're just filling with black. So basically, she's working here with black. And here we are just seeing only one person working, but typically, a lot of people are involved in creating such a piece. There are like multiple people working on one single piece of fabric. So this is another style of kalamkari. As you can see that this has got the Mughal influence, and this is another beautiful piece. It's a museum quality, and that is probably in the Met Museum. And this is a wonderful piece of art as well. This is also kalamkari, but the style is very different. Now this is kalamkari, how it looks like in the world today. So it's like in one of the fashion shows. This is again this is how it looks in. So I just wanted to have this picture here and share it with you. No, I am very much involved in this type of art, and this I just wanted to share a little bit that gives you a little idea of what I do here in my studio. On the top left, as you can see, this is the cloth kalamkari that is going through the harda process. That means it's going through Mirabelle untreated with milk. So this is what the cloth is first. Of course, I did wash the cloth before, but this is the treatment of the cloth with milk. Once the cloth was dry, you can see that I have used, I have drawn before, and this was an elephant that I was trying to create. And this is how the ink looks like. Although you see here that the ink looks very dark, but it's not very dark. In the photograph, it seems to be very dark, but when it comes in contact with the cloth, then it becomes like black outlines. So kalamkari design will always have this black outlines. This is how you will really understand that this is kalamkari. I mean, there will be these black outlines very clearly visible. This is this madder powder, like manjishta. Sometimes it's called madder powder. I use the powder, and I'm trying to develop these colors. This is a work in progress. It depends on so many factors, like climatic conditions, and there are many other things that factor in. This is a work in progress. This is how the pen looks like, which I have dipped in the Kasim solution, and it has a very distinctive odor as well, I must say that. And this is the last one that you see in the bottom right is going through the boiling process, because I was developing the color red using madder, and of course the mordant was alum. Now I just wanted to share a nice interesting story. Now kalamkari, as I said, needs buffalo milk. Without buffalo milk, it's very difficult because we need that fat content of the buffalo milk. Now I live in a place that's very close to Buffalo Grove in Illinois, and I was thinking that getting buffalo milk wouldn't be very difficult, and because it's close to Buffalo Grove. However, this buffaloes here, it's different. We have to depend for kalamkari on water buffaloes, which is not easy to get it here. So after a long search, I came across a gentleman, and he owns about 40, 50 buffaloes. He's not Indian, of course, and he has never heard of kalamkari. So when I shared the story with him, which I told him that I am in this journey and really want the buffalo milk, and if he could kindly send it over to me, and he was super fascinated, and he really wanted to help me out. But it was super expensive, to ship from. He lives in Colorado, and it was super expensive. But it was a gift from him. He actually sent that entire milk, and it was very expensive in the sense that not the milk, but the shipping. It was super expensive. But he really wanted to do it. And now so during the conversation, when I was having this conversation with Jose, his name is Jose, and that was a time when one of his buffaloes was expecting a baby. After that conversation, in a few days after that, that calf arrived. So the baby arrived, and he named that baby Kalamkari. So he was so fascinated, and so I just wanted to. There's a gift that I just wanted to give him. So he sent me this picture of the buffalo and the baby, and I just wanted to give him. This is actually a Kalamkari style made. On canvas, on a wooden canvas. So I always say this. This is Kalamkari in Kalamkari style. The baby Kalamkari, I mean, in Kalamkari style. Okay, now there is another form of art. We were all talking about the original Kalamkari, which is the 3,000-year-old art, the Sri Kalahasti and the Machilipatnam style, right? However, there's another form of art which is known in Gujarat and is known as Matani Pachedi. That's called Kalamkari from Gujarat. And that is about, I think, about 500 years old or so. Those are also beautiful pieces. However, although there are some similarities, for example, when you look at the colors, you can see, they have, red and black. However, the stories are very different. The styles are also quite different. And it's also very interesting because, there also, a group of people used to travel from one village to another, just as same with the Southern style. The Southern style as well, the way it kind of flourished is that a group of people in the Southern style, they were called the Chitrakatis. They used to travel from one village to another. They used to say stories from Hindu mythology, and that's how that kind of art came into existence. Here as well, it's also to do with stories, where a group of people used to travel from one place to another, and they also narrated stories, and that's how this type of art also became popular. Here, they mainly focus on different mata. They call it, like, there are, like, I think 65 matas here. And you will always see in Kalamkari from Gujarat, that means Matani Pacheri, there's always the deity, the mata is always with an animal. So and there's a vehicle, there's always an animal. It could be, there's always an animal. It could be an elephant or many other animals. You will see that with them. But there is a lot of similarity between these two types of art. Okay, so that's how I just wanted to give a little bit of an introduction to Kalamkari. And if you have any questions, you can always ask me towards the end of my presentation. Now, after Kalamkari, I just want to, take you to to the introduction of batik. Batik is also another form of art. It's also done on textiles, and batik. The word tik means dot. So in Indonesian language, and so. However, the origin of batik is not very clearly known. There is a debate, people say probably existed in ancient India. However, it kind of got, it kind of slowly didn't get that kind of, it slowly faded mainly because of the tedious waxing and dyeing and many processes. But we know nowadays, we know batik very well. Like, there is this batik saris. I have grown up appreciating always my mother's beautiful batik saris. However, if you look at this Indonesian style of batik, it's very, very different than the batik that we see in India. So batik is actually a wax we use here, wax as a resist, and dyeing is then, of course, used because that's how you get the colors. Here you can use synthetic dyes, but there are a lot of people who are actually also working to get with natural colors. So I have also done a couple of pieces batik with natural dyes. So that is also another work in progress. But very often I actually work with synthetic dyes when I'm doing batik work. So wax is one of the most important resists that you really need to have that in order to do your batik work. Well, there are different types of wax, but you need that wax for batik, and also, of course, you need your dyes for that. The history says that it's about 3,500-year-old art, which originated in the Far East. And usually it's done on cotton, or it is done on silk, or maybe in other fabrics as well. So the technique here is, like, if you just divide it, it's just three main process. The three. If you speak in a broad way, first of all, you have to wax, and then it has to go through dyeing, and then it has the removal of the wax. But of course, there are many other steps in between that you need to create a batik piece. For example, you have to first wash the cloth, so that makes sure that it is a clean cloth. Then you have to kind of draw it first. Then you have to dye. Sorry, you have to use your wax exactly, just to know which places you want your dyes or which places you do not want your dyes. A very simple batik piece would be just using the wax just once and just using the dye once. That is also batik, but that is a very, very simple batik. But the very complex batik are very interesting to see. They have different colors, and it goes to multiple layers of waxing the piece of fabric. So it really finally becomes like a hard piece of cloth because of multiple times. It has to go through wax application of wax. And finally, when everything is done, you just have to boil the wax out, and you just get your own fabric. Okay. So these are the tools that's used for batik. They're called canting or janting. So you can see that here is a picture here, where you can see the spout. The wax comes out through here, and it's very difficult, especially in the beginning, to control the wax because it's hot molten wax, and it was continuously flow, and it is very difficult to control it. But through practice, it becomes much easier. And of course, often brushes are used. A lot of people use brushes to batik, and there are also these batik tulis that are used for batiking. And of course, as I said, dyes are, of course, very important. And then you also have to have a fixative, like I use soda ash most of the time. And there is also, blocks that's available. You can also use blocks for your batik piece. Yeah. So, as I said, we don't really know if it existed with the origin of batik. There's always kind of a debate. Some people say that it originated probably in India, or it was known in India very, very many years back, several years back. Um, However, it was in 1927 when Rabindranath Tagore um, um, you know, traveled to Java, and he was fascinated by these beautiful batik pieces, and he got those back to India, and that's how it revived in 19 around that year, around 1927, around that time, when it was introduced to Vishwavarati University in Shantiniketan. However, Shantiniketan's style of batik is very different than Indonesian batiks, and it is very, very popular in Indonesia. They use janting as the um, main tool. But in Shantiniketan style, I think very often brushes are used. Maybe janting is also used, but I think the styles are very different. So there's another thing called batik nitik. Now, nitik means dots. So this is also known in Indonesia, though. And so this is just, for example, you can see the patterns, how intricate and how detailed it is. Here, the dots are used, and the dots are mainly square in nature. Like they are not real dots, but they're like square dots. I just wanted to add this so that if people are interested, then get to know about it. Okay, so I am very fascinated. Like I have always loved batik, and I am very involved in this type of art. I use synthetic dyes most of the time. I have also done with natural dyes on batik. That also takes a bit of time. However, this mother and child you see, I have used. This is my work, and I've used like thousands and thousands of dot to create this piece of fabric. It was very time consuming, but a wonderful experience to work. And this is not batik nitik. This is just like pointillism, just you're using thousands and thousands of dot to create this piece, where I had to go through multiple layers of, applying the wax and also dyeing. And yeah, and sometimes you can also, there are two ways of dyeing it, well known. So one is, for example, you can just immerse it in the dye bath, or you can also paint on it, for example, or you can do both, a mix of both as well. Although I'm very interested in batik and both kalamkari, I'm trying to bring these things both together, and we'll see how that goes. So yeah, so many of my pieces, so for example, this one is right now in the galleries, one of the galleries in Stevenson, and my story was also shared at Roosevelt University. Just wanted to add that as well. So here's some of my works. So you can see this, these patterns. So I was working in my studio, and these are all actually batik pieces. However, they're all in Kalamkari. The motif is actually Kalamkari. So I was trying, and I'm still trying actually, so to bring, Kalamkari motifs and doing it in batik format. So this is another, but here I have used all synthetic dyes. And these are some of my tools that I have used for my work. And this is another pointillism batik, which is also, again, very time consuming. It takes a lot of time. So here I'm working here in the studio here. So I just wanted to share a little bit about myself. Although I have a master's in computer science and I was working in the field of IT for a while, and I just wanted to take my passion in art forward. And I started my journey in teaching art. So I started with a group of just 4 kids, and now we have multiple several times. And this picture is from our exhibition where we had the guest of honor from the Indian Consulate. I just wanted to add this as well. And I'm really very involved in promoting Kalamkari as well as batik. I've done several private workshops and several corporate workshops. And I hope that this type of art, it never dies. It is like, as immigrants, we feel that we want to bring something from our own country where we are actually from. So from India, it's a land of culture and beautiful art. So Kalamkari is something that I am very fascinated with. I kind of, I try to promote this type of art as well as batik. So I've done several corporate events as well. And it's all a lot of work in progress. So here's my humble studio. And I believe that this tree of life concept is very interesting. It is something that a lot of people around the world can really relate to. And this is one of my creations, although this is done on a canvas, which I did for one of my workshops. And I did this during COVID times. So I relate this to that these birds, for example, and they are all closely connected, yet there is a distance. So in COVID times, it was pretty something that we could all relate to. And it's believed that the more branches a tree has, it gains more wisdom. So people gain more wisdom with age and experience. So yes, I just wanted to share a nice quotation from the Brahma Kumaris. My life should be such that I receive light and give light to others. So keeping that in mind, I had created this tree of life concept. This is other more, session. So yes, I'm very fortunate that we have been well supported by the Indian Consulate here in Chicago, as well as Indian Embassy. I did quite a few sessions for Indian Embassy, which I have kind of here added to. And I've also trying to bring my own personal designs and creations in Kalamkari. And these are some of my creations. These are all work in progress. Yeah. Now, the goals are, for example, that I would like to eventually work on khadi, which is our own. We are so proud of khadi as Indians, but we should keep in mind that the original craft, whatever kind of experiment we do, I think the original craft, for example, kalamkari, should never fade. We should keep that in mind, that and that kalamkari, that original craft, because nowadays it's common that we do it on canvases, which is all very good. There you're focusing on just on the motif part, but the craft is very important, the way it was originally done. So it is very important that we promote this type of art. I am very much inclined in promoting this type of art, letting people know, not just among the Indians, but also people, those who do not know much about kalamkari, have never heard of kalamkari. So to keep that art as so that such art never dies. And so I'm developing all this natural colors and trying to bring these different types of ideas and creations, but keeping in mind that we have to keep that art kalamkari as authentic as possible. Well, art is art, and of course, it is a wonderful experience we experience the divinity. One, it brings one to humility and connects to your own truth. And many often I have heard, and I believe firmly that this type of art has a lot of therapeutic um, impact. I mean, it is very, very therapeutic in nature. And I also am very interested to know the science behind such art. It is very meditative. And is it just the art just because it looks good that we like it? Or is it just the Kalamkari saris that we are so fascinated? Or there is something more? Why do we like to do such art? And a lot of times, people have told me how well they felt after doing such painting. And so I'm very inclined, and I just want to do some study or a research study if possible sometime. What is the science behind such art? We love it, like such kind of practice, and it's an old tradition, an ancient tradition. So I just want to know more about it, and I myself a student, and would like to explore more. So I'm very, very grateful to my guru, my teacher, my mentor, Gopalji, who has taught me the entire concept of Kalamkari in very detail. Today, I was just able to present a little bit about what I have learned. So this is just I wanted to share our Facebook page and my contact information. And if you have any questions, please feel free to ask me. But from my end, that was the presentation, a brief introduction to Kalamkari as well as Batik.
Uh, Thank you very much, Paisley, for sharing very interesting facts, techniques, and stories about Kalamkari and Batik. As immigrants, there are many things that we can introduce here in this country.
Right.
Azadi Ka Amrit Mahotsav fortnight is an effort on our part to share many things about our art and cultural heritage. Uh, and we are very pleased that there is a very encouraging response from our viewers. We On Facebook, I can read some of the remarks. There is one. Uh, Seema Mandalji, she says it is very interesting, and Nidhi Gupta ji says that it is great insight, and there is we are joined by one Mr. Rafiq Sheikh ji. He says under medieval Islamic rule, the term Kalamkari was derived from the words kalam, which means pen, and kari, which means craftsmanship. This became popular under the patronage of Golconda Sultanate. Thank you for sharing these facts. Now, we are pleased to join by some patrons of Kalamkari and Batik who have keen interest and surely can supplement this session. May I invite, I can add to the stream these viewers. Uh, First, we have Ms. Neela Das Gupta ji, and secondly, we are joined by Sonali Biswas ji, and then Suparna Banerjee. Uh, Suparna Banerjee ji, may I request you to please now you appear on the screen. Thank you so much. May I
Thank
first request Sonali Biswas ji to share her views about the lecture, and if she can add uh, uh, more facts to it.
Yeah, thank you, firstly, Piyas, for such a beautiful presentation.
thank you.
We definitely learnt a lot. We are all used to seeing kalamkari or draping kalamkari. I have a few saris, beautiful ones, and dupattas, but the intricacies which you talked about, all the details and how they are, made, and all the craftsmanship that goes into it. So it was very, very, informative and educational. And I'm very curious to know about what you mentioned about the healing effects of kalamkari. And I also feel that it has a very calming and maybe a therapeutic effect when it can be any form of art, but specifically kalamkari because of all the different colors that are used, and the intricacies. So, have you ever thought of using it as art therapy, like having art classes specifically as therapy classes for people who are maybe undergoing some specific stressful situations, or battling any diseases? So, do you think that kalamkari used as an art therapy will also be helpful to people?
Yeah, that's a wonderful question. Yes, I am a strong believer of that, that it is very, very therapeutic because even I felt that, when I went through difficult times and when I was, when I started doing this type of art, I really, really felt the joy and that I could completely detach myself from the situation, when one is in a difficult situation. And this type of art probably helps because it is super detailed. And when you're more focusing on such detailed work, you probably forget a lot of other
Yeah,
distractions.
exactly.
Yeah, and I have a friend who participated in one of my workshops, and she had a mishap in her family, and she specifically mentioned to me how much she enjoyed coming to the session and practicing this. It is very, very meditative, and so if you're looking at this ornament, so for example, every animal or every character that you see here, the deities or the gods or the goddesses, they have this intricate designs and patterns. For example, all the jewelry, and you will see in kalamkari style, for example, they have this so-called gaja. Gaja means that the designs are more like a U shape. They're called that small gaja, and then it's called the big gajas, and there are these floral gajas. I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing the term very correctly, but I think it's called the gaja. That's how it's pronounced. And when you are really doing such details, you're bound to. It's complete like a meditation, and you're completely forgetting everything that's happening around the world. And then you create such a beautiful piece of fabric, and on top of that, we're using complete natural dyes, even if you're doing it on a canvas. But if you're doing it with natural dyes and on a piece of cloth, and working with nature and staying so close to nature, I feel that it is a wonderful experience, and I think that it does have some healing effect.
Being
I'm
affected.
also in the journey, and I'm studying, and I'm trying to do some research study if
I,
possible.
yeah, we'll be eager to hear more about your research. Yeah. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Uh, may I request Ms. Suparna Banerjee to share her views and ask if she has any question?
Yeah, thank you very much, Piyas. Thank you for the enlightenment, I would say. I am an artist by passion, and I've been, with art for a very, very long time now. So I can appreciate all what P.S. has been saying. Not to say that I kind of spent a lot of time in this midlife, area, time of mine to kind of, I've not dedicated it to art, I would say. So definitely, there's a lot to learn, and I'm so happy that Pias is continuing the journey of exploration, not only just to explore the art form, and take it out there and, train people on this art for different art forms. And basically, she and I have some conversations on a regular basis. She has this urge of learning the science behind the healing process. And I'm sure people out there listening to her, I'm sure you're thinking in your mind, and if you have any contacts or anything that you
Right.
can give her some leads.
Yeah.
And she's passionate about this, and I think it's an excellent idea to find out how it connects to the brain. And I've been doing some research for her as well.
Yes.
I just honestly hope that we can get to the bottom of this and she can do and pursue the knowledge that she wants to get for herself. And, in another year or so, I'll become an empty nester, and I definitely want to spend more time with her, exploring the art forms that she is exploring right now. and she's doing a wonderful job. I was just floored when I saw the mother and son batik the other day on our Facebook page. So thank you very much, and I hope everyone watching this show has the same kind of appreciation for the art form that she has been trying to kind of explain to us today.
Thank you so
Thank
much.
you.
Thank you. And yeah, it brings a lot to the community, right? So we would also like to do a lot for the community. Let's see, how this goes, this study.
Yeah, I'm sure. I hope we get somewhere with this.
Thank you.
Now, may I tell that we are joined by many viewers on Facebook whose comments are very encouraging, and they find this lecture and this discussion very informative. Mr. Paul Chopra is there, Mr. Tejasari is there, and thank you, viewers. And now, amongst the discussants, we have now Miss Neela Dasgupta, and this is a two-generation group, and I think she's joined by her mother. Please, both of you are requested to please do share your views and ask if you have some question.
Thank you. Thank you, Piyas.
Thank
It
you.
was a very, very informative discussion. I loved it. I learned a lot. I was actually going to ask you where you got your buffalo milk from, because and you already answered it. So I really enjoyed the global connection, the global aspect of how art evolves and how we learn from different societies, how Rabindranath went and brought some knowledge of batik to Shantiniketan.
Yeah.
And I was just going to ask you a very simple question, that you said that we have new Kalamkari, there's colors like pink and all that are being introduced. Have there been any modern motifs that you're seeing that people are trying to incorporate to make it more accessible to young people?
Yeah, so that's something for example, when I did my designs, I created some of my own designs. And of course, I just, for example, I said one of the most characteristic things about Kalamkari is that the jewelry part, for example, and that you can use not only in just in jewelry, but in designs just like that, that's called the gaja. And using that, keeping that in mind, I have come across, I have myself created some designs and patterns which I got done by the artisans in India, which I actually have a team there which I'm working with right now. So I'm giving my own designs and trying to create them. And well, that has been appreciated by the people, by so-called friends or clients. And that is kind of so-called a little bit like a modern thing. And if you're thinking about, say, for example, during COVID times, a lot of people became very they very creative, especially. And I think a lot of designs have people have come up with many different designs. And we can, and for example, the tree of life, which I think was one of the very important style, or very important thing which we see in Kalamkari. And that can also be change, the styles can be changed. Or you can do, Kalamkari is basically a technique, so you can do many different things with Kalamkari. Kalamkari is a technique by using pens, right, the typical pens. And I would show at the end of the presentation that how these pens look like, and which I really wanted to share with you. So which I have here, for example. So this is a typical Kalamkari pen. So there are two different types of Kalamkari pen which I have. So this is made out of the bamboo, and here in the middle you can see it's actually a cotton or maybe a kind of wool, and that helps in absorbing the dye or the paint. And this has kind of a blunt end, which is mainly for filling in the paint, whereas this one has a very very pointed one, and this is meant for sketching. So it's basically the technique of Kalamkari is actually an art using such pens. So you can come up with many different designs, but we would like to keep a little traditional because that's the beauty of Kalamkari, right? And I also wanted to show you. So this is how when the cloth is, treated with marble and buffalo milk. This is how it looks like when it's treated. So the color changes. So the white cloth is now a little brownish nature. After that, it comes the drawing process and many other processes. Yeah, all the later process. And this is my batik pen. So you can see this is very difficult to control here. You're going to have the wax, the molten wax, and this is the the spout. So the wax flows continuously throughout from here. So these are a couple of my favorite tools. But yeah, you can come up with many designs.
Thank you very much. I think this brings to an end of this program. Thank you so much, Piyas. Uh, it was it was a wonderful lecture, enlightening us about various aspects of Kalamkari, dyes and paints, and its history. Uh, India really has so much to share with the rest of the world. Uh, I'm sure our viewers have found it very interesting and informative. You know, in this Azadi Ka Amrit Mahotsav fortnight, earlier we had a webinar on Ayurveda, a theater event, a seminar on global supply chains, resilience, opportunities for India. Later this week, we have a theater event, Jara Yaad Karo Kurbani. It is a presentation by children. Uh, Please do join us. We thank our viewers with whose support and active participation we have been able to join this Azadi Ka Amrit Mahotsav fortnight in a meaningful way. Please do follow us on social media handles, Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram to find more about these events. We sincerely thank Piyas, our viewers, and the discussants who have given us their valuable time. Uh,
Thank you, Ranjit
I
ji.
would really like to thank everybody who joined us, and a special thanks to the Indian Consulate here in Chicago for giving me this platform, for giving me, the opportunity to talk and discuss. And thank you, everybody, for joining the event. And on any questions, you can always reach out. And yeah, maybe we can share more later.
Yeah, thank you, Piyas.
Thank
Thank you,
you.
Ranjit
Thank you
ji.
so much.
Yeah.
Thank you. Namaskar, everyone.
Namaskar.
Thank you.